Guys, guys, Canada is not the bed of roses. Canada is not heaven. Canada has its own challenges. I woke up today and feeling all of the weights of all that has been happening to us, especially for me and my kids, because my husband has been here before we came in. So he's used to the lifestyle. Because of the way I felt today, I decided to come to you with this video. I want you guys to understand that this video is not to discourage anyone who is on the mission to come to Canada. Like you all know, I'm always here to bring you information about how to make your dreams of immigrating to Canada a reality. But it will be misleading if I don't also let you know the realities that we face as new immigrants here in Canada. My children and I came to Canada exactly on the 24th of March, 2023. And we came here to join my husband, who had been here for almost 2 years. It was something we wanted for ourselves as a family. It was answered to prayers, and we are very grateful for it. We are still very grateful. But the truth is, there are a lot of struggles new immigrants or we have faced in the last couple of months. The first thing I saw as a challenge was the healthcare. Before we came into the country, I've heard about how people talk about the healthcare out abroad, how it's good, it's efficient, and all of that. But nothing prepares you for what you meet when you come into Canada. The healthcare in Canada is overburdened, guys. It's overburdened. And there's a lot of pressure right now on the healthcare. Now, I told you we came into Canada on the 24th of March, but, we immediately we came in, we started looking for a family doctor, but we did not even find any available hospital that was ready to take in new people. We kept looking for hospitals. Remember that you want to be sure that the hospital you choose is within your house, the location of your house, so that you don't have to travel a distance in case there's an emergency. So we kept calling doctors, but finally we got one particular hospital who was ready to accept new immigrants. But guess what? They gave us an appointment, which was our first appointment, for 3 months later. They gave us the appointment for June 30th. Now, I told you I came into the country in March. We started making our phone calls the week we came into Canada, and we were only able to get an appointment for June 30th. That's a whole 3 months to get a family doctor, guys. Now, what if my kids had an emergency? What if there was an emergency situation in my home that needed a doctor's review or something? That would have meant that we would have spent money out of our own pockets. And in this country, you cannot buy certain drugs off the counter. There has to be a doctor prescription. So imagine there was an emergency. Thank God for the medications we brought from back home when we were coming. Those were the medications that helped me when my kids had certain illnesses that I was, conversant with already from back home. I was able to administer these medications and they became better. If that wasn't the situation, we would have to spend out of pocket, and out of pocket here is so expensive. The bill is so crazy, guys. So for now, it's crazy. It's crazy, guys. If you have to even go to the hospital now we have a doctor, but then when we have to go to the hospital, we have to wait for a long time to be able to get to see the doctor, one-on-one. It's crazy. A lot of people are using these facilities. I don't know what the issue is really. Now, okay, like a week back, my husband had to go do a blood work, and by the time he got to the hospital, even though he had an appointment, his number was 920, guys. So he was the 920th person on the queue. He had to wait for his turn. So you see that there's a lot of burden on the healthcare facility in Canada. Now, the second thing that is a struggle for us and for most new immigrants is settling in with kids. I have 3 kids under the age of 7. My first son is 7. My daughter is 4. My last baby is 18 months. It's not easy, guys, settling in with kids, because everything we have to do as a family, we have to put them into consideration. Everywhere we have to go with these kids. And that it can be tiring taking kids along with you, to to places you want to go to. If it was a fun event, it becomes tiring, it becomes, annoying at the end of the day. When you have to take care of kids, when this child has to say she wants to use the toilet, she wants to pee, all of those things. It's not easy. If it's a long stay outside the house, then sometimes we decide one person has to go and the other person has to stay back with the kids. Guys, it is never easy. It is not easy. Settling down with children is something people don't talk about enough. Back home, from where I'm coming from, I was someone who was always on the go. I had businesses I run. I still have those businesses that I run right now back home in my country. So I was very busy. I was a very busy entrepreneur. So I never had time to stay at home like that. I took care of my kids. I watched them, but I had people stay back at home to watch my kids. So coming here and having to stay back at home every time with the kids is a major, is a drastic change for me. And honestly, if you have a spouse who is not supportive, this can actually affect your marriage. Guys, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and people don't emphasize this enough. The third thing I want to talk about is monthly expenses. Monthly expenses here in Canada can be over the roof. Now, this differs from province to province, okay? Now, for my province or for this province, I stay in Alberta, if you don't know. The rent here used to be very okay, but right now rent is going crazy. A lot of people were coming to Calgary or Alberta because they felt that the rent or the housing market here was a bit stable and they could afford it. But I can tell you categorically that the housing market has gone astronomically high. It is going crazy now because people are coming. So there's a lot of demand. So rent is also very high. So we get to spend so much on rent monthly. Now, this is in contrast to what we usually do back home. We had our own house before we came to Canada, but before we had our house, we were paying rent. And the monies you pay for rent in back home, in my country, I'm from Nigeria, by the way, the monies you pay for rent back home was for 1 year. So, but right here, we're paying as much as we're paying for 1 year, we're paying that for a month. So rent here is monthly. So you have to pay these bills every month. And most times it is an automatic debit. They don't have to wait for you to pay. At the time of the month when your rent is due, the money is deducted from your account immediately. So aside from the rent, you talk about phone bills, you talk about electricity bills. Electricity bills for us when we came was okay. No one was complaining. But 3 months later, it grew 3 times over. And we're wondering why, because we're not even turning on the lights because this is summer. We're not turning on the lights. It's always bright. Even at night, 9 p.m. at night is always even bright. So we don't have to turn on the lights. But we will notice that the bill even went up 3 times, So these things are not even cast in the stone. The bills are rising every day. Then let's talk about phone bills. For myself and my husband, we have to buy data for our individual phones. Now, Canada is one country that has one of the highest mobile data charges across the world. For my phone, I pay as much as $40 per month, and that was the lowest I could get for my own internet, for my own data for my phone. So every month, $40 is deducted from my account, whether or not I pay, because I'm on auto pay. For my husband as well, he does as much as that. And then for every home in Canada, we have Wi-Fi in most homes in Canada. So we also pay for that as well, monthly Wi-Fi for the home. So if you look at all of these bills, it's a lot. Now, if you have a car, you're going to be paying for insurance. And here in Canada, insurance can be high, especially if you don't have, your driver's extract and all of those things that can help them, justify that you have been driving for a long period of time. Your insurance will go up. So you can pay as much as $400, $500 monthly if you don't have those things. My husband pays as much as $250 monthly on insurance, so that's another cost that you pay on a monthly basis. Now, if your house doesn't have parking, you have to pay for parking monthly, to be able to park your car. And if you have 2 cars as a family, you are paying 2 insurances and you are paying for 2 parking spots. Now, if your house has an underground parking and you want to park underground because of winter, you're going to be paying an extra charge for parking underground as well. So guys, there are a lot of charges, a lot of bills that are, we incur every month. I'm not used to that because from where I'm coming from, most of these bills, we pay them every year. So this is a huge change or huge, a drastic, change for us, for me especially, not for my husband, for me, because it is absolutely new to me. I want to be prepared about it. The fourth thing I want to talk about today is daycare and childcare. Childcare is expensive in Canada. Childcare is crazy. It's astronomically high. Guys, I used to say when I come to Canada, I'll put my kids in childcare. I'll get a child, I'll get a school, I'll get a day home for my kids, take care of my kids. I have the money, this, that. But guys, when I came here, nothing prepared me for it. Like, I called several daycares and I couldn't even get an appointment because they kept telling me they were booked for the year and I'll be placed on the waiting list. Some were even demanding for $100 to be placed on the waiting list. And when I asked them when the waiting list was, I was told I was going to be on waiting list in 2024. Now, this is me. I came in March and I had to wait for almost 10 months or 8 months to be able to put my son in a daycare. These are some of the things no one prepares you for. You never know how this goes. Now, aside from the fact that there's no space in these daycares are also very expensive. Now, depending on the province you are, like for my province, some of the daycares I saw were ranging from $1,500 to $1,800 monthly. Now, the government provides subsidies for families, to be able to, pay up their charge for daycare. But even when the government takes out that part of their charge or that part of their own responsibility, you are left with about 500, 700, 600, depending on the province, to pay for your child monthly. Now, when I found one, by the time we look at subsidy, government subsidy for my 2 kids, with my daughter who is not yet in school and my son who is 18 months, we had about 600 and 700 to pay monthly. That's about $1,300 every month. And when I told my husband about it, he was like, it wasn't worth it. Since I'm still at home, I'm not doing anything. I'm only just checking up for my businesses back home. I can stay with the kids, which I thought was fair. Okay, but when I stayed back and I was seeing all the bills that were accruing in the home, I thought it was wise for me to get a job. So I started searching for something to do here. And because of that, we had to get a daycare for my son. I finally got one for my son, but then we were placed on the waiting list till September. Thank God I even got one because I have a lot of friends who have not even gotten anything. And guys, considering the time difference, back home, we are 7 hours away from my home country. I have 2 businesses I run. I have staff. I have employees who work for me. And because I'm always trying to be on my toes so that they don't rip me off my business, and then having to take care of my children, having to take care of my home, having to take care of even YouTube. It's demanding. So I needed them to go out sometime so that I can have time for myself. So all of these things were not things I was prepared for, so it really threw me aback. And I want you guys to know it is real. It is real, guys. Now, the 5th thing I want to talk about is the job market. Guys, the job market in Canada can be chaotic. When I post videos on YouTube about job openings, how to get jobs in Canada, and people say that they sent 12 emails, no one is responding to them, I laugh because even us here in Canada, for us to get a job, we need to send out as much emails as possible. I cannot even emphasize on the number of emails I've sent over the last couple of months when I think 2 months ago when I decided to start applying for jobs. I've sent out over 150 CVs, and honestly, I only started getting a call after I sent about 100. Guys, it is the same thing for everyone. For you to get a job, you need to be able to, convince the employer that you are the right person for the role. Now, most employers in Canada want people who already have Canadian experience. And of course, that as a new immigrant or a foreigner, you do not have this experience. So what do I advise you to do? It's best to start looking for transitionary jobs when you come into Canada. Do not say because this is not the role of you are doing back in your country or it is demeaning. Nothing is demeaning here. Nothing at all is demeaning. Look for transitionary jobs and start doing something. I did not mind to look for any transitional jobs at the time I started looking for jobs. When I wasn't getting any, feedback from the people I've sent my CVs to, I started looking for transitional jobs because I believe there's dignity in labor. Once you're able to get that job and you're able to work for a few months or maybe 1 or 2 months, that is Canadian experience. Then you can put that in your CV and then apply for those roles that you want, to do. That way you'll be able to get a job easily here in Canada. Another reason why I started looking for a job was because, I make money for my business back home. Yes, I make good monies for my business back home. But when you compare or when you try to, change it, exchange rate, because of the exchange rate, the money doesn't make sense. When you convert that money to Canadian currency, the money doesn't make sense. It's useless. So when I saw that wasn't working, I decided to start looking for a job here. Honestly, guys, the monies we make back home does not make sense. So if you are using the money you have back home to support what you do here, you find out that you are spending way overboard. You are spending too much money. So it's best to start working here so that you can earn in Canadian currency and spend in Canadian currency. It is just wise. The sixth thing I want to talk about today is the school system here in Canada. The school system here in Canada is great, great. I'm not going to talk, I'm not going to say less of it. It's really great compared to where I'm coming from, but my children are in a Catholic school because of our personal preferences, Now, one of the things I do not like about the school system is the way they call you, frequently to come and pick up your kids from school. Now, my son was able to start school, in the last term before they went on break. And during his stay in school, he spent about 2 months in school, okay? But within that 2 months, the number of times we had to go and pick him up from school were up to 10 or even not more than 10 times, guys. And most times when you look at it, you are wondering, why are they always calling? If a child has cough, just little cough, they will call you and say, come and pick the child from school. If the child has a slight fever, just slight temperature, they will call you to come and pick that child from school. And when we first came in, it was really difficult for myself and my husband to comprehend why this was happening. Because back home, when a child is not feeling too well in school, no one calls you. They take the child to a sick bay, and take care of the child. But the school where my children were going to had a clinic, and they had nurses who worked and were paid by the school to attend to kids when they were sick. So, so when they had little bouts of fever, cough and all of those things, they were taken to those nurses to take care of them. It's only on cases where it is very serious that they call you to come to school. So I never had issues of coming to school to pick my kids, But here in Canada, only 2 months Jason spent in school, and we had to go and pick him over 10 times. And most of the time when they called us, because I do not drive yet in Canada, because of course, that to drive here, you have to write a driving test and then do the practical test and all of those things. I haven't done mine for certain reasons. So each time they had to call me, I had to call my husband, who always was at work. And most times these things were distracting to him because he had to always leave his job to go and pick Jason from school. And then when Jason comes back from school, you see him bubbly, you see him playing, you see him throwing, tantrums and, lively. I am wondering why they called us to come and pick him up from school. It is really, really, really annoying, honestly, guys, and it can be so stressful. Now imagine if my husband was not working from home. If he was going to work and he had to go drive 30 minutes to work, who would go and pick him? I would now have to, how do I do the kids? My 2 other kids that with me in the house. It means I'll have to take a taxi, with my 2 kids to go and pick my son from school and bring him back home. And taxis, Uber here is really expensive. Guys, so there's so many things that that's just annoying. This is annoying. This particular thing is really annoying. And I honestly, imagine if I have 2 of my kids, because my daughter is going to be joining Jason in school in September. Okay, so imagine that they're both in school and they call me today for this one. Tomorrow they're calling me for the other one. I'll be running up and down. And then I have my own things I'm doing. I have my own business I'm running as well. So how do you put this together? So these are certain things that has been a struggle for us since we came into Canada. Guys, even though I do not want to go back home now, even though I don't want to go back to my country now, considering all of the things that are happening back home in my country, the instability, a lot of issues happening back home, I do not want to go back. Yes, but then these are struggles. I know it's a phase and we're going to get out of this phase very soon, hopefully by God's grace. People have done it. They've gone out of this phase. They are now stable and all of that. I know that by God's grace, we are going to get stable here and all of those things. And I know that my children have a better future here than back home in my country. Yes, we're going to go back home someday. That's my plan. I love my country either way. I'll still go back to my country, but not now. We have our reasons why we came here, and of course, we want to make sure that that reason is fulfilled before we think of going back home. But guys, we can't be putting out content and telling people to come into Canada without letting them know the realities as well that Canada has to offer. These are the reasons why I had to do this video. I felt really down today and I told myself, I'm not going to do makeup. I'm not going to wear my clothes. I'm going to come here and just say it as it is, release my heart, say what I feel in my heart. And I hope that this will help you make better plans, so that when you come in, you have better expectations, so that you don't keep your expectations too high and you're able to adjust easily here in Canada. Thank you guys for watching. See you on the next one.